doubt about it. That's perfect. Good to see you again.
Great to see you.
All right, here we go.
Boys.
Look at this.
Damo.
And a third boy over here. Back in the saddle with another episode of Metrics and Mayhem here on the outdoor studio, which we just got.
The Bear Grylls edition?
The Bear Grylls edition. We're firing up the 2024 campaign. We are excited to announce that we are on Spotify now. We'll be on Apple Podcasts in a couple days too. We're going to get this thing moving a little bit. And what better way to do that than back in the saddle here with the mayhem of the equation, Dom Melchior, a svelte mayhem, if I may say. Those cans are looking rather nice.
You know, you get it going.
You do.
And you take some time off. You find yourself. You go on the Barry Bonds program.
Just walk.
And just hard. You just put in the work.
You did.
You just put in the work.
And
no other help whatsoever.
None.
His head did get bigger.
You
see an increase.
It's
in
an
size.
inverse
There
kind
is
of
a
thing.
cream
He
and
went to an extra large hat.
somewhat of a clear
Growth cream.
Well, with all this too, we are happy to have with us on the other side of me over here, Mike the Mouth. Mike the Mouth Doherty from all things famous with South Jersey Poker and just an absolute riot around the card table. But Mikey, thanks for being here, man. Good to see you.
Appreciate
All right, man. So we're back in. I know it's been a minute for you.
Yes.
First time on the show for you. We're all in the same fantasy football league together. We're kind of getting ready for that season. So Dom actually last year made it all the way to the big dance.
Made it to the finals and got properly smacked down by an undefeated team. So I can't be too sad about it. Because when you're going to lose, and you lose to an undefeated team, you're just a part of history.
Now, was that the only time you were a part of a team that was undefeated for you guys in a league?
I think so, yeah.
No, I actually was undefeated and won a league also.
Yeah,
but
you
that
playing
team,
with your sons and your daughters.
I mean,
and
I might be going back
4-year-old
15,
cousins.
20 years.
50. They had fantasy
I
football
am the
back then.
Well,
Okay.
It came in the mail. You had to figure out who you won.
Who's Mike Schmidt? I want to draft him.
But Dom did face one of the best teams I've ever seen.
Yeah, I agree.
And I put up a fight. But Bald Dog was just a juggernaut. You couldn't stop him.
Like a warm knife through butter, man.
Yeah,
Bald
you
Dog.
couldn't stop him.
He's been contributing to the league for years.
I offered the 50-50 split
Yes.
and properly. Bang. No.
Yeah.
My dad,
Shot
he
down.
called
Shot
as
down.
soon as you sent that offer. My dad called me. He said, "Oh my God, he offered me a deal. He's going down. He's going down."
Oh, yeah.
You know,
He
you offer
loved it.
somebody a deal, you try to squeeze, you try to see the writings on the wall, you see your fate in front of you, and then you're like, maybe I could squeeze out a little bit of
Just a little
revenue in
bit.
this. You know, the
'Cause you're a
salesman in me.
businessman, yeah.
I'm
I
a
was gonna
businessman,
say.
the salesman in me. You always want to make a deal.
He's a salesman, right?
And I had absolutely no leverage, and I was bluffing the
Didn't
entire
work.
time, and he called it.
Yes, very good. But this will be I think this is coming up to season 20. This might be 21 of the Dope High League coming up. We've
We're
been going
getting
for a
old.
while. Yeah, it's going for
amazing.
getting up to the 25th anniversary soon. But all good things.
She's legal now.
She
You can buy her a drink.
That's right. I like that. Dom, we're going to get an update first on one of the 4 major sports going on over the summer, and that would be the WNBA.
Oh.
Your thoughts about all things WNBA and baseball. What's happening? Get us up to date.
I'm actually very passionate.
That's
about
really
what-
great talking baseball
Yeah,
here on
which
Metrics and
one?
Mayhem. We are all good there. And back to the football content. I put together a list or a draft board talking first rounders because we're getting ready for our drafts. We're going through. We happen to be in a 12-team league. So what I did was I put together a 12-team draft based on average draft position. So where in the mock draft certain players are going. So we're going to start to go through the picks, maybe do a little analyzing back and forth just to see where it's at. The PPR league, right? So it's very similar to what we play. 12 teams, and we'll go 1, 2, 3 just based on draft position. McCaffrey 1, CeeDee Lamb 2, Tyreek 3. Anything out of any of those picks, 1, 2, 3, that does something for you, a value, would you switch any of the order? I'll keep these up here too so you guys can see as well.
I mean, I got no issues with McCaffrey going 1. I think he has earned everything
Okay.
that he has been given. This past year, I think it was a consensus that everybody went wide receiver. Wide receiver, wide receiver, wide receiver in the first round. I mean, historically, running back has always been the cash cow. You get your running backs in order, and then you can pick up some wide receivers to fill in the spots. But this year, everybody committed to the wide receiver, and I think you saw that running back still has a lot of value.
there's a little bit of
Yeah.
zigzag here, right? So
Yeah.
if it's trendy to go wide receiver, Belichick is going to play the other game. He's going to make the tight end the most lethal position on the field. So it kind of begs that question. And actually, as this goes on, it's nothing but receivers.
Yeah.
The game has changed where receivers definitely are scoring more, but the value back, like you're talking about.
So who ended up being the second best running back last
I
year?
think Brees Hall.
Okay, so Brees Hall, with that offense being what it is going to be with Aaron Rodgers in there. Now, Brees Hall was the second best running back, and I'm sure he probably was in the top 10 of all fantasy scoring. I don't know the numbers off the top of my head, but I would imagine that it wouldn't have been McCaffrey and then 9 wide receivers.
No.
Brees Hall had to be up there. So that begs the question, why not Brees Hall in the top 3?
You would take
Right.
Can you get that far to say that name with the third pick?
Well,
Does that feel
I think
weird?
it does feel weird. I would move CeeDee Lamb out of the second spot for one reason. Two reasons. One, he's a Cowboy, so that's just
You got
known.
the hate. Here we
hate
go.
the Cowboys, so we'll let the Cowboy fans in our draft. I think is your father a Cowboy?
My father-in-law's buddy.
Your
yeah.
father. So I know there's a Cowboys fan, so we know we'll take him.
Okay.
But in the 2 spot, can you replace him with Hall? I don't know.
You go Tyreek.
I would go Tyreek.
Tyreek,
I would
right.
go Tyreek.
And I personally, I don't like numbers 2 and 3. Me personally.
I agree. I had number 2.
I don't like CD
2 last year or
yeah.
3, and it totally screwed up.
It's a long way back.
Well, I just don't like CeeDee Lamb or Tyreek Hill. If I had the second or third pick,
You're trading out of it.
I wouldn't take either of those two.
So
I think there's more value with another pick than CeeDee Lamb because if you pick a wide receiver, I'm always of the mindset you're also picking their quarterback.
yeah, you're trying to for sure.
You're not even for your team. I'm saying you're depending on their quarterback to give you the kind of production for them. And I don't trust Tua. I don't trust Dak.
Look at Garrett Wilson last year.
Yeah.
You bank on everything with Aaron Rodgers, and then 3 plays in, boom, done.
done.
You know?
Look at Cincinnati.
Yeah, exactly.
That
was
my
all.
pick.
Yeah, that was all your team. Yeah.
And it just totally destroyed my season.
So for
right?
me, I don't put CeeDee Lamb or Tyreek Hill. I think Brees Hall deserves to be in the top 3. And honestly, this is going to kind of probably be a shock. Puka Nacua.
So we're gonna say that name much sooner than I was expecting
Puka
to.
Nacua.
Was he on the Makahans last year? Was he a Makahan?
He was a Makahan.
Yeah.
Puka Nacua, I don't know if he's the new Julian Edelman.
Okay.
He could be.
Oh, yeah.
I don't know where he goes from here because he was such a force.
How about where Puka Nacua go to college? You got it? Give it to me.
I think I got it. Northwestern Polytech Institute
That's
for
close.
the girls.
That's close.
No.
Be a Louisville Cardinal. That's
That
all right,
was
though.
my second
Second guess.
That was my second guess.
So we get done Tyreek, and on this receiver bandwagon here, Jamar Chase, Justin Jefferson, Amon-Ra, St. Brown. There's 4, 5, 6.
Well, I
Yeah.
will never draft Jamar Chase again in my life. I drafted him in the past 2 years after coming into your league and winning it.
Mm-hmm.
Right? Jamar Chase has totally killed my team.
Well, like you said
2
earlier,
years in a row.
like you said, what we talked about earlier, when you
Very
draft
consistent
a
the past
wide
few years.
receiver, you have
yeah,
to think
of
about
course.
who's throwing to him. And Joe Burrow
Well,
had a great first 2 years.
Yes, he's
the
been
last
hurt.
couple have been riddled with injury.
He's been hurt.
And
You can't predict that, but
Yeah.
now you do. So now he will fall a little bit out of the top 3, and now there'll be value for him at 7 to 10,
Well,
6 to 10. Now you can pick him there at 6 to 10.
Cincinnati's replacing 3 starters on the
Right.
offensive line this year too, which is going to probably add a little bit more pressure
Exactly.
to Burrow.
Yeah, I don't like to say. Well, we'll see what happens.
How about Justin Jefferson? J.J. McCarthy, I hear, is throwing the ball to him.
yeah, how could you? It's the DeAndre Hopkins effect.
Uh-huh.
I mean, once you have DeAndre, I think we all thought a couple years ago after DeAndre Hopkins lost Deshaun Watson, he'll still be fine, but he never was.
Yeah, definitely compromised.
He never was. So
Well, so Jefferson's right now is one of the best receivers almost ever to play already. Right, he set all kind of records in his first 5 years. I guess 5 years he's in the league. So will that affect him? And you're going to see it. He will drop. It'll drop off. Does it drop off 20%? Then he's still still a top 5-6 pick. If it drops 20%,
See, I don't think
that's not that much for him. He's still one of the best receivers.
In my opinion, he's a top 5 talent. He won't be a top 15 scorer.
He's a
Here
top
we go.
1 talent.
We're getting takes in
He's
already.
the top 1 talent. He's the guy you pick if
Yeah.
he does what he's done.
I don't
in the
think
past.
Justin Jefferson
But he won't. I agree.
won't be in the top 15 of point scorers. So
that-
how could you draft him that high?
We will record that one for sure.
But
I
if
love that.
If you're picking 7 to 12, and if you're picking 12 and he's there, you don't take him.
No, you take him
I
there.
take him.
You take him there. But if
I
it's
agree.
3 or 4 or 5, I don't take him.
I agree. I wait,
Yep.
but I will take him late.
What do you think, metrics?
Yeah, what's metrics though?
Yeah, Mr.
Metrics thinks that you're very compromised with J.J. McCarthy. You got a Big Ten quarterback who got his fame and glory by 3 yards in a cloud of dust running the Harbaugh offense. Now, that said, on third down, J.J. McCarthy was extremely efficient in college, especially on the move. That said, this is a completely different system here in the NFL. Oh, we're fine. That's still recording in the back. If you want to touch the mouse and move it, we can. I'm on Ross St. Brown. We haven't talked about that name yet. While I go wake this up.
Yeah, he's a good one too.
Yeah,
I'm
he's
on
a good
Rob.
one.
He was on your squad too.
He was a Makahan.
a Makahan as well.
Yeah.
I
Probably took you to the championship game. Really,
yeah.
right?
Listen,
Guy like
Makahan's
him's a
had a
difference
squad.
maker.
Makahan's had a squad. We just didn't have that good of a squad. Yeah, I mean, listen, he's good, but at the end of the day, it's still Jared Goff. I mean, and Jared Goff had a fine year last year, earned himself, some money.
He got a couple of shekels. Speaking of shekels, so did Jamar. Jamar Chase signs that $148 million guaranteed. That's a lot of cheese, man.
And you know what? Maybe it's the cynic in me, I guess.
No, not the mayhem.
But I'd rather have guys that haven't gotten their contract yet.
Playing for it, huh? Trying to
Yeah.
earn their keep a little bit.
I'd rather have fancy guys. I'd rather have the Bijan Robinsons, the Brees Halls.
What a transition
You know?
there. That's a pro transition. 7 right now on the board. Bijan followed by Brees Hall, and then there's your Puka Nacua
Puka Nacua.
at 9 overall.
Yeah.
Could
it's
you
a
see
production
Bald
fit.
Dog pulling that one?
Wow.
I'll take
Yeah.
a Pachuca.
Yeah.
Patrushka.
Puka Luka Nuka.
Yeah, right.
I'll have a Puka Luka Nuka.
I can't believe he's up that high. You have, I don't know what that one. You know, Bijan also getting a lot of catches out of the backfield too. Bijan now with Kirk Cousins in Atlanta, we got to talk draft. We haven't talked draft
yeah.
yet at all.
I can't remember a time where Kirk Cousins up in Minnesota did a lot of checkdowns. Though that's,
Fantasy great. I
Yeah.
wouldn't want him leading my team, but a fantasy guy, he's an
But
absolute
him. But the running backs with him, I got to go back and check the archives.
Well, like you were talking about with Dalvin Cook. Like Dalvin Cook keeps getting hurt. He can't stay on the field. That's it. That's the availability. He's still trying to figure it out. We round out the first round. A.J. Brown, Garrett Wilson, and Jahmyr Gibbs. So out of all of those picks right there in that order, 1 through 12, are there any that kind of stand out as like, yeah, I would be the happiest with this pick getting this player if it were to fall that way?
I'm going with Puka.
9 with Puka.
If I'm in the 9 spot and I get Puka at 9, I am happier than a pick and slot.
All right.
Because I think he's a top 3 talent. I think he's a top 3, maybe not talent, but he's a top 3 scorer.
Okay.
I just think that he proved way too much last year to be
With an injured Cooper Kupp too.
Yeah.
That was definitely one that hurt the Bakahans, not the Makahans. The Bakahans.
The Bakahans. If I was Puka, I mean, listen. I think while we've discussed how the wide receiver is now the premier pick, I think getting number 1, 2, or 3 in the draft is probably the spot where you're like, I don't know if I want to be here.
Yeah.
I want to be more towards the end of the first round so I can get those premier guys on the comeback too.
Yep. And if you're going running back 1, you're going receiver on the way back to catch up.
You have to. But I mean, at the same time, your pop, he had the number 1 pick last year, right?
Yeah.
And
Quarterback. No. My dad was. He was in the middle. He didn't have the first pick.
I thought he had the number 1 pick.
I think
Rick
he
did.
took.
I thought he took McCaffrey.
No, my dad didn't have McCaffrey. Who had McCaffrey last year? Maybe it was Rick. I don't remember.
I don't know.
But McCaffrey
I just
won.
don't. I think if you are in the top 3 of picks for fantasy, you got to be savvy. You have to take chances. You have
trading.
It's not even so much trading. You have to risk getting a guy who you think is going to be projected higher than what he really is, and let somebody else get somebody who's lower. If you're in the 4 spot, you can't take Jamar Chase. You got to take Puka over Jamar Chase because you think Puka is going to get more yards, or you got to take Brees Hall over Jamar Chase. You got to take a risk in getting somebody who's going to score more, even though they're not projected to score.
This is Mr. Right Now, people. Mr. Right Now. He
Yeah.
loves the mayhem of it. Don't take the safe route.
Yeah.
You got to go
No.
all in on a risk in the first round. I absolutely
I'm
love
putting
it.
all my money on the hard ways. You know? the worst bet in the casino, but I'm putting all my money on the hard ways. I'm taking a chance.
We come back, Jahmyr Gibbs, Marvin Harrison, back-to-back. That's the snake, 12-13. Marvin Harrison Jr., rookie out of Ohio State right now. Kyler Murray throwing him the ball.
No.
Supposed to be playing center field for the A's.
No.
Again, I don't take Marvin Harrison. You got to prove it to me. I don't like taking rookies that high. Let me see it. And again, who's throwing to him?
Well, especially that because Colin Murray's pure trash.
Yeah,
throwing the
mini
ball.
me's
We all
throwing
know
to
that.
him.
He can run the ball, and
You
we
can still spin it.
We've sniffed him out 2 years ago when you own him in fantasy, which I did. You see that he just can't throw the ball.
No.
Can't stay on the field,
yeah.
too.
And he can't stay on the
It's
field.
another one, too. Best ability is availability, right, boys?
Exactly.
Drake London, Jonathan Taylor. Next two off the board. Does nothing for you. Drake London, again, like we said, with Kirk Cousins, that offense. Falcons favored to win that division this year, too.
As they should.
Yeah, they should.
As
Right.
they should. But listen,
He'll put up points.
the Falcons may be favored, but we all know who I'm pulling for.
Oh, of course, there's no doubt about it.
The fighting Bakers.
You gotta love the fighting Bakers, no doubt. He
Yeah.
got paid.
He got paid.
He got paid, right?
He got
Yeah.
paid a
he
little
got
bit.
Paid,
Yeah.
paid really good.
He got paid.
And then to talk about your interest, once they get paid, you don't love them anymore. This might be the
Nah,
absolute
yeah,
change
it
here.
might
Baker
But he's
wa-
different, right? He's
Baker,
different.
Baker, chip on his shoulder, Baker.
Yeah,
He's
chip on his
different.
Well,
shoulder.
he beat
Baker.
the Eagles, right? So
Yeah,
and
right.
It was like
Twice.
Well, that just gave him all his money.
Yeah.
How
Them
could it
wins
not?
were huge for him.
Absolutely.
Yeah, just-
An absolutely
I mean,
failing
listen,
Eagles team, and he
exactly.
gets paid.
Doesn't
Good for
matter.
him.
Yeah, I'm good. I'm
Defending NFC champs.
Yeah.
Beat him.
How about this one? You know, your Puka Nacua pick
Yeah.
comes back to back. You get Chris Olave, who's another Makahan stud.
Yeah, but then again, it's the problem of who's throwing to him.
Right.
Yeah, they're all Derek Carr up still.
I know, which is a shame because they should allow Jameis
Here
Winston.
we go. Go ahead.
I mean, even though he's not on the team anymore, I get it.
You still want him to play.
I
You
still
know he's
want.
not on the roster.
I want
You want
them
him
to
starting.
get Jameis Winston back.
There's nobody here a bigger supporter of Jameis Winston on this podcast.
There is I run the South Jersey Jameis Winston bandwagon.
I believe it.
You
I
know,
believe it.
and we it's all you can eat crabs on Wednesdays.
Hey,
So
eat it up.
you know,
Winston gets it.
it's W's and crabs. We eat them both.
I love it.
Both. W's and crabs.
Devontae
Dungeons.
Adams, Brandon Ayuk, Saquon Barkley. Why don't we park on Saquon for a little bit here as Eagle fans? Where do we stand with the potential of Saquon?
I just don't think he's going to have enough production to be. I mean, you're going to have to pick a running back in that spot, and I guess it doesn't hurt to have him. He'll have 3 really great games for the Eagles, but most of his games will be because they just share the ball too much.
They rotate too much.
He's
Yeah.
never just like Swift. Swift had some monster games. They probably should have ran him more, and he's supposed to be a better Swift, right? So, I just don't see him putting up 25 plus games.
Where you have
But
a Saquon.
did they rotate because they couldn't determine whether or not any running back they had on the roster was a full 3-down back the way Saquon is?
Well, I don't think last year they did that. I think that's their style. They do that anyway.
Well, they also have to worry about pass
They
protection.
always rotate
things
the
like that. They
backs.
rotate based on passing
It's
plays,
part of their
pass
scheme.
protection. It's part of their scheme.
What do you
Would they
stop
get
that
on
now?
first and second down if you're in a traditional running style offense? But Saquon can do it all.
So
he
how
can
many
pass
carries
block,
does he get a game? What's your prediction?
I mean,
What does he average per game? 14 carries?
No,
average.
he might not even average 14, but the threat
Right.
of Saquon on the field is bigger impact
that
than he is
doesn't
as a
help you in
fantasy. Right.
fantasy.
As fantasy,
Yeah.
I think I can get there with you. I do think that on the goal line, though, which is where the running back position has evolved to, I still think Saquon is a major threat because, look, if I'm Kellen Moore, I'm Nick Sirianni, probably the last thing I want to do is keep running Jalen Hurts in that up the middle.
They're going to keep doing it though.
They
They
are.
kept doing it. It was painful.
But-
the guy's getting his head taken off.
Right. But
What
if
are they going to do without
but it
Kelsey
worked.
now?
I think they will. How could you not? I mean, Kelsey has all the faith in the world in Cam Jurgens. You still have 2 studs on the outside.
Kelsey may have all the faith in the world in Cam Jurgens, but Cam Jurgens is not Jason Kelsey.
Right.
No, he's not. But Jason Kelsey wasn't Jason Kelsey when he started either. There's a little bit of time that we need to develop into that.
Well, we're
but
talking
I'm
about
just
next
saying,
year, so-
I would rather if I have the if I'm on first and goal with the 1,
Yeah.
I'm not running Hurts up the middle. I'm running Saquon, and I feel very good about that.
So if they had 25 touch pushes last year, and 20 were successful for touchdowns, say, I don't know the exact number. How many do they have this year? What's your prediction?
I take the under.
I take significantly less too.
Yeah.
Well,
Because
it
you
should
don't
be.
need it.
You're right. You don't need it.
You don't
Well, they
need
do it.
and there's a threat of it always being there.
Our coach, he's
You
a little
play-
hard at it.
Well,
I think last year's a wake-up call for him.
I would love to get into that because I don't think
get fired.
I don't think our coach is going to be nearly as involved in the offense this year.
Completely agree.
No.
All right, let's come into that next. Let's finish up our second round. After Saquon, we go Nico Collins, Jalen Waddle, and Debo as a second-round pick.
Okay.
Man, Nico Collins is I think is going to be a wagon. I think Nico Collins could score top 12 points.
It's going to be a very fun offense.
Yeah,
They have
he's
Joe Mixon.
a wagon. Joe Mixon, Nico, and C.J. Stroud is just.
That's a lot.
He's that guy. He's
and
that guy.
D'Amico Ryans. Outstanding job. First year of coaching. I mean, that guy's all fire. Man, the vibes are strong in Houston right now. So
They're going to be a wagon.
I like it.
Could you? I mean, listen, having the Texans in the AFC Championship game, that's not a far stretch.
Wouldn't be. You would get pretty decent odds on that number
Texans
two.
can easily be there. Texans and then Detroit in the NFC could be here.
Dan Campbell, the fighting Dan Campbell.
Eagles in Detroit.
Can you imagine that Super Bowl?
What's
Oh
that?
my God.
Houston, Detroit.
Houston, Detroit.
Just Dan Campbell in the Super Bowl.
I think they should just let D'Amico Ryans and Dan Campbell fight each other.
just
They just,
that's the
they
Super
put
Bowl.
a bench right on the
Yeah.
field. They're just sitting there doing 45s,
that's
man.
it.
Yeah,
They're just
throwing down.
beating
Start
hell out
off
of
with
each
an
other.
arm wrestling competition.
Right. Yep.
Yep.
And then they go in the cage.
Yep.
Mike Evans, Devonta Smith to end the second round.
Okay.
And that's where the top
I'm happy
24
with that.
are at this
How
point.
about Mike Evans just putting up 1,000 yards every year of his career consistently, and it doesn't even look like he's trying.
Nope. He falls every year, and then someone, remembers him and goes,
Mayfield, you know?
I'm
Yeah,
just
well,
saying, like, it doesn't matter
there's
who's
your
throwing the
quarterback
ball. He's getting
situation,
1,000 yards.
he's
a Hall of Famer. I mean, he's
a big guy.
At the end of Mike Evans' career, if he stays healthy and plays for another 4 or 5 years, you could make the argument that Mike Evans is a top 5 wide receiver of all time.
That's crazy, but it's true.
It's
Wow.
true. You could.
I'd have to
You
look
could
that
make.
up.
You could make that
have to
from
look
a
up them
numbers
stats.
perspective.
Well, I guess you
five?
say the same thing, kind of like Frank Gore.
Yeah.
Right? It would be hard to believe that Frank Gore would be in the status that he is, but I mean, the stats are right there. And his kid is playing now, too. Crazy,
They
right?
got the same size head.
Right?
Yeah.
Well, you brought up, why don't we get to it? We'll segue into the offensive and defensive coordinators, right? You brought up Kellen Moore, Vic Fangio, now defensive coordinator for the Eagles. Why don't you tee us off here, Dom? What are your thoughts with either one, if you want to talk Vic first or Kellen Moore first, and how that impacts the team?
I love that we got an old defensive coordinator. I love that I'm not, as far as a continuity standpoint, I'm not thrilled that we got Kellen Moore, because I feel like we need coaches that aren't going to leave this team. You know, Vic Fangio, if we have a good year,
He's not getting hired.
he's not leaving. He's not going to take a head coach job somewhere else. He's there for at least 3-4 years, in my opinion, if we continue to be good. If the Eagles make it to the Super Bowl, and if we win the Super Bowl, Kellen Moore's he's gone. He's gone. And then that's your 4th offensive coordinator in 4 years for Hurts. And you're like, give me somebody who can
give me some consistency. The
Consistency.
Baker Mayfield syndrome.
Yeah.
Right?
I mean, I feel bad for a lot of these quarterbacks, and I feel like that's what hurt a lot of quarterbacks when we were growing up, the Sam Bradfords of the world. I feel like Sam Bradford, if he had one coordinator.
Can you look at me in the face and tell me
I
you
don't
feel
know
bad
where
for
this
Sam Bradford?
conversation just went, but he turned to Sam Bradford.
Yeah.
Well, that guy has made so much money throwing 13
Well,
pounds.
I'm not sad for him as
Okay,
far
just
as
making
like
sure.
the money he made, but
Sam
like
Bradford.
you know,
I mean, did he give it his autograph one time?
he came over my house, right? And
He's
we
like, hey,
snuggled.
Sammy, can
And
you
we
sign my
snuggled.
sign my
But I'm
football,
saying,
Sam?
I just think of him as somebody
Like-
who could have benefited from the same coaching staff. You know,
Consistency. The consistency of the staff.
Wow.
Vic
Yeah.
Fangio comes with previous head coaching experience that did not go well. Same thing with Jim Schwartz, too. Maybe like a little bit of Jim Schwartz, where
Oh, yeah.
you don't get the sense that Schwartz is leaving his
No.
defensive coordinator position, right? Same thing with Vic, right? But the thought, I agree with you, of Kellen Moore, right? Like Ben Johnson last year with the Lions. Ben Johnson was all the rage because that offense exploded, and he'll be the next mind. So I think that's a very valid concern. Your thoughts on Kellen Moore? You feel the same way?
Yeah, I do. I really do. So, I mean, we'll see what happens. I really would like to see, hopefully he stays. And, they can build some consistency and move forward.
I think one thing with Kellen Moore that comes to this offense is the explosion of the tight end. Right, I think the Eagles are going to be lined up in 11 personnel quite a bit. We're going to see 3 receiver sets, 1 tight end, 1 back, Saquon on the field.
Yeah.
That's a very dynamic position for Kellen Moore in his history, and I think this is a year that Dallas Goedert especially could really explode because of what they've done with Jake Ferguson, even Dalton Schultz in Dallas.
especially around in the red zone.
Yes.
I feel a lot of jumbo packages.
Yeah,
in
they
the
just
red
really
zone
didn't throw
with
him
Kelly.
enough. I mean, to stay healthy, right? I don't think he's ever going to put up the stats people want Goddard to, because they do spread the ball
Well,
around. I just don't think he can ever achieve that goal, but he still is a top 5 tight end because He does so many things well.
Well, if he wants,
he's a beast.
If he
And,
wants that last big contract, he better this year. Because he's at that age now where people are going to be like, okay, who's his replacement?
Yep.
'Cause
Yeah.
he's now Zach Ertz when Dallas Goedert was on the team.
Yep.
So it's going to be like, okay, if you want that next big contract, that final
The
3 year,
final life contract.
the final 3 year of your NFL career contract, put up some numbers there, buddy.
You also need a quarterback who's willing to throw the ball over the middle too.
Well, that's how many times you watch a game, as much as you love Hurts, he is smaller, and he never would throw the ball.
And why would
he
you?
throws to the out. Well, he's wide open in the middle field, and he's thrown to the left. He's thrown, and there's Goddard, and they show it running well. So I really do blame Hurts, and I do blame him because he is not looking for it. And if your tight end is going to produce, you need a quarterback that's going to find that tight end.
Yes.
And we're really just butting ourselves in the
But you
foot.
also have an extreme amount of confidence in
doing
Devonta Smith and A.J. Brown,
You
too.
do, but when the defense knows you're not throwing over the middle of the field, which they did after, and the playbook came out, and we're forcing it on the ends, and we're not stretching the field vertically. It really came to light in the second half of the year.
We'll see what Kellen does. I'm sure that's something that the ownership of the Eagles has pointed out to the coaching staff of what we did not do well last year.
And Dallas,
And,
say what you will about
maybe-
Dallas. I'm sorry to interrupt you, but say what you will about Dallas. The offense was never the problem in Dallas. It was coaching, head coaching, and their defense.
Oh yeah, totally. I totally agree.
That team always put up points and moved the ball
Totally
down the
agree.
field.
Yep.
Vic Fangio, Greg and I got into this last week. We disagreed on how much the 3-4 comes into play with this team. Eagles are traditionally a 4-3 defense, with Vic Fangio coming in traditionally a 3-4 minded defensive coordinator. Right now, edge rusher on the Eagles is a big concern.
Yes.
Right? You lose Hassan Reddick. He obviously played his balls off. He was terrific. But now, my hope is with the 3-4 coming in, we see a lot more of it to limit the exposure of the absence of the edge rusher to get more from the linebackers on the outside. Any thoughts regarding defensive coordinator Vic Fangio?
I just think that the evolution of the defensive player has gotten to a point now where the rules really hamstring what they can do. Quarterbacks are getting it out as quickly. Nobody's going under center anymore. So the edge rusher has kind of been negated, because of athletic quarterbacks and how fast they get it out, and the rule changes of what PI is
barely
and
hit
holding
them.
is. You can barely hit them.
Right.
So I think the way the NFL defensive have to evolve is you need athletes with speed, and I think the Eagles drafted accordingly with a defense that's going to just ball hawk. They're going to go for interceptions. They're going to go for pass deflections, and they're going to bend, not break. You're going to see a lot of Jim Johnson type, style of defense with Vic Fangio and the athletes that they have on the defensive backside.
Yep.
And I just don't think we're going to see a double-digit sack guy on our team for the next couple years, just because I don't think the league's going that way. When you get guys like Aaron Donald who are still in their prime going, I'm good.
Yeah.
I think they're seeing the writings on the wall. I think it's going to be, instead of 10, 11 sacks, it's going to be 10, 11 interceptions or 10, 11 pass deflections.
As the
things
pass
that.
attempts go up
Yeah.
as well.
The pass attempts are up, so that's the only reason I would say it can maybe stay there. Of course, the pass attempts are so high.
Sure.
They don't run the ball a lot, so the odds of getting more sacks are there, right? But, I agree with most of your points there. The one thing about the Eagles 2 years ago, we went to the Super Bowl on the defensive side. Of course, they got to the quarterback, right?
Sure.
Last year, you saw that they couldn't get to the quarterback, and all of a sudden, our cornerbacks couldn't cover because they never really could cover. Our defensive line put so much pressure on that quarterback that they had to get rid of the ball. And in the Super Bowl against Kansas City, what happened? We couldn't get to the quarterback on a wet field, and we couldn't cover anybody. All of a sudden,
we
right?
almost had the exact same personnel on the defensive line, and one year they can get to the quarterback, and the next year they can't. So what does that say about the personnel we have on the team now? Have they regressed that far from the Super Bowl year, or B, has the league adjusted?
Well, when you won the Super Bowl, you only got to the quarterback on one play.
Well,
That was Brandon
that's what I'm
Graham's
saying.
play,
But
right?
we almost set the record for sacks that year. We
During
had
the
70
regular
sacks.
season.
Right.
So we almost set the record. We go into the Super Bowl, They come out, everyone's slipping, we can't get the quarterback, and Mahomes just makes us look silly.
Well, I'm talking about the New England Super Bowl. The Super Bowl you won.
Oh, yeah.
You only got to Tom Brady one play.
Yeah, but that was
it was an important play.
It was an important play. A lot of points were put up in that game,
sure.
right? So that was just a pure shootout against Kansas City. I mean, there's a lot of points in that game.
Shootout
Also.
too.
I mean, if Hurts doesn't drop the ball, we were up by what, 10 at the time? We were up by 10 points. There was a penalty before that play that we had the first down.
I remember that was a
that
holding
comes
call,
back.
yeah.
He drops the ball. They score. We're up by 3. We go in. Say we don't even score a touchdown. At least we're up by 13.
Yeah, right.
Game's totally different.
It's
We win the
absolutely
game.
different game.
But we just couldn't get the quarterback.
Eagles, based off of preseason win projections, I went through their schedule, and I also went through last year's schedule. So the average number of wins of what they played last year, 8.1. Projected win totals for this season coming up, 8.5. So it's a little bit harder of a schedule than what they played last year.
So I look at strength of schedule kind of differently than
That's
most
shocking that you would think
Yeah.
differently.
because
This is why the podcast works.
they always say like, oh, we have a harder strength of schedule this year than we did last year based on last year's record. Well, the NFL is a parity league. The bad, like you could say we played easier teams last year. Well, now those easier teams are better because of their draft and the decisions they've made to get better. And the teams that were maybe good last year maybe aren't nearly as good this year. So it's I always say, who cares about what their record was last year? Because that's not it's in football. It's completely different.
Right.
Well, for this anyway, like the one reason why.
So it's like, oh, we had a easy strength of schedule last year because we played this team, and that team. Well, they're better. They're now better this year. I think the Dallas Cowboys aren't going to be nearly as good as they were last year. This year, I think the Kansas City Chiefs, the San Francisco 49ers, they're not going to be nearly as good as they were last year. I think the teams that have gotten better all factor into that strength of schedule stuff. And I don't look at it the same way that I guess the rest of the NFL does. I mean, that's just the way I look at it.
You zag when everybody zigs.
I zag when people zig.
You are the salmon going up the current in the water, swimming against the stream. We'll close it out with this. Eagles right now on the board, 10.5 wins. Over, under.
10.5?
10.5.
Over. So
10
we'll
and
bet Dom
7?
if he goes under. We'll put it on.
Is
record
that
right
is that
now.
what Vegas is
Yes.
saying? 10.5
10.5
wins?
right now.
Well, I always think that the Eagles are going to run the table.
Well,
in the
they
division.
might go. They can go 5-1 real easy.
Yeah,
if not
so
6
that's
now.
what I'm thinking.
Right.
I think
So we'll go 5. I'll go 5.
Washington. Listen,
Washington always beats us once for some
yeah,
reason.
for
right?
some
So,
stupid ass
I don't
reason.
know.
So 5-1 in the division, win 5 more games. Yeah, I'll go over. I mean, I think 11-6
we need
is
6 more games.
Is
It's okay.
I think we
Never
just
strong.
You always round up here.
Always
yeah,
round up.
Glass is always half full.
11,
Yeah.
11-6 is definitely for this. They have the talent to be a 10-win team at bare minimum.
I actually think
You know.
that's where they'll fall. They'll fall right at that 11-12
Yeah,
mark, right?
so I think 11 wins is well within the realm of possibilities.
All right.
I agree.
Good. We
Yeah,
like it.
100%. I'm over.
All right.
Yeah.
Then let's. We're going to take a break. We're going to transition into millionaire gear. So. Mike?